Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where Dahmer was born in 1960 and where he later committed the majority of his murders, served as his birthplace. According to reports, Dahmer had a fascination with dead animals at an early age and even began collecting the bones of tiny animals and roadkill. He was reportedly an outcast in high school too. What offenses did Jeffrey Dahmer engage in? Between 1978 and 1991, Dahmer was the killer of 17 men and boys. As a result of his horrifying crimes, which included cannibalism, necrophilia, and dismemberment, Dahmer subsequently earned the moniker Milwaukee Cannibal. Additionally, his house was discovered to contain preserved body parts. Dahmer had already been detained on many occasions, including once for touching a little youngster. Just 3 weeks after graduating from high school in 1978, he committed his first murder. After serving in the Army, he murdered his second victim in the late 1980s, and he continued to do so for many more years until his capture in 1991. Men between the ages of 14 and 33, who were mostly Black, Asian, and Latino, made up Dahmer's victims. He would meet his victims anywhere, including gay clubs and shopping centers. Jeffrey Dahmer was found guilty when? In the end, TRACY Edwards, one of Dahmer's victims, managed to escape and was discovered running down the street with a set of shackles swinging from his wrist. He informed police that Dahmer was attempting to murder him, and later, investigators discovered preserved body parts in his apartment. A sanity hearing in court determined Dahmer to be legally sane. He received 15 consecutive life sentences, totaling 957 years in prison, when he was sentenced to life in prison in 1992. Later, he was given a 16th life sentence. Just 2 years into his term in 1994, fellow prisoner Christopher SCARVER assaulted and murdered Dahmer by hitting him over the head with a metal club. 20 years later, in 2015, SCARVER said in an interview with the New York Post that he was not one of those guys who are in jail and regretful. Right now, this is the Netflix program that has everyone's attention. This is a true-life tale that was inspired to become a fictitious crime series. A real person who actually lived. Jeffrey Dahmer terrorized the U.S. from 1978 to 1991 with his heinous deeds. The most sought serial murderer in the United States, he went by the nicknames Milwaukee Cannibal or Milwaukee Butcher. That was all made up, but the Jeffrey Dahmer tale isn't. The eldest child of analytic chemist Lionel Dahmer, Jeffrey Dahmer was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin on May 21, 1960. Carefully tracing the life of the Milwaukee youngster, the series alternates between the day he was exonerated and his early days as a child and a teenager. Dahmer's instructors as a kid characterized him as shy and rather quiet. It is also said that he had abandonment difficulties as a youngster, since both of his parents were absent for a significant portion of his upbringing. Dahmer was said to have grown up with an early understanding of violence, since he often saw his parents arguing, in addition to dealing with anxieties as such. He came out as homosexual when he was pubescent and kept his sexual orientation a secret from his parents. If you were to see the program, you would realize that Dahmer's inability to embrace his identity in public is due to the homophobic nature of his family. In one of the sequences from the program, Dahmer, Evan Peters, who portrays the character's namesake, is shown masturbating with a phony male figure. His grandma discovers him and warns him that it's wrong to do so. Later, she tosses the figure away and confides in a clearly upset Dahmer. An adolescent Jeffrey Dahmer likewise struggled with alcoholism. He reportedly started drinking to deal with the dysfunctional dynamic between his parents at home. Later on, throughout the years, he was discharged from the military due to his drinking problem. After receiving his diploma, Jeffrey Dahmer committed his first murder. What initially began as a sexual fantasy progressively evolved into premeditated killings and later cannibalistic behavior. Dahmer has always been fascinated by the bones and other anatomical details of deceased animals. In fact, Dahmer is shown explaining to a therapist in one of the show's sequences how seeing his victims' inside parts makes him feel sexy. After coming out as homosexual later in their youth, he fantasized about having a male subservient partner. Eventually, his fantasies drove him to dissection, and the rest is history. The most infamous silent serial murderer in America was caught. Although the program has received praise and criticism from reviewers and audiences alike, it is a unique real crime documentary. You will be horrified by Evan Peters' flawless portrayal of the pedophile necrophile Jeffrey Dahmer, yet you'll still be interested in the story because you want to know what happens next. If you haven't already, watch Dahmer on Netflix and keep an eye out for the release of another Jeffrey Dahmer-related documentary, Conversations with the Killer, The Jeffrey Dahmer Tapes, on October 7. The Milwaukee cannibal, better known as Jeffrey Dahmer, was found guilty of killing at least 17 young men between 1978 and 1991. Several police officers were dismissed when it was discovered that Dahmer had been let to hold a teenage boy hostage in his house after he claimed that they were in a relationship. The Dahmer case is famous for the authorities' utter disdain for the facts. In 1992, Dahmer was given 15 life sentences. Milwaukee courts determined that Dahmer was legally sane despite having been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, schizotypal personality disorder, and a psychotic condition. Dahmer's parents said that he had a mostly normal upbringing, but after getting obsessed with dead animals, he started to exhibit early indications of mental instability. Soon after Dahmer received his high school diploma in July 1978, they got a legally binding divorce. In his late teens, Dahmer started to become increasingly reclusive and was despised by his peers. There are at least 17 victims who have been named. With his soft-spoken nature, Dahmer charmed young guys into becoming his victims by performing acts of necrophilia and cannibalism on them. As trophies, Dahmer often kept severed body parts. After the case's details were made public, Dahmer was the focus of a huge number of non-fiction books and films. In 1994, Christopher Scarver, a fellow prisoner at the Columbia Correctional Facility, beat Dahmer to death. The series won't attempt to sensationalize the true tale, according to Evan Peters, who plays Dahmer. He expressed the hope that Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story, will spur debate on the current mental health problem. He said that putting on the distinctive spectacles that Dahmer wore made him feel scared. As Lionel and Joyce Dahmer, Penelope Ann Miller and Richard Jenkins share the lead role. Despite the fact that the series is narrated from the victim's point of view, it is anticipated that Dahmer's childhood will get considerable attention. Glenda Cleveland, Niecy Nash, Dahmer's neighbor who saw his murders for years, is one of the series' important characters. Cleveland repeatedly alerted the police and FBI to her fears, but each time her claims were disregarded. Her tale, which isn't often included in accounts of Dahmer's atrocities, will hopefully get more attention thanks to the series. The television show also stars Michael Learned as Dahmer's grandma, Catherine Dahmer, and Molly Ringwald as his stepmother Shari. As Tracy Edwards, who helped authorities find Jeffrey Dahmer and was lauded as a hero by the media, Sean J. Brown co-stars. The Jeffrey Dahmer story is not the first time the life story of the notorious serial murderer has been brought to the big screen. The 1993 film, The Secret Life of Jeffrey Dahmer, stars Carl Drew as Dahmer, while the 2002 biography, Dahmer, directed by David Jacobson, starred a teenage Jeremy Renner. Dahmer received accolades for their considerate handling of the case and their analysis of Dahmer's mentality. Due to Renner's outstanding performance, Catherine Bigelow decided to cast him in The Hurt Locker. The graphic book My Friend Dahmer by cartoonist Durf Backdurf, who went to the same high school as Dahmer, explores his experiences. The graphic book investigates the circumstances behind Dahmer's first murder. After making its premiere at the Tribeca Film Festival in 2017, the movie adaptation features Ross Lynch as Dahmer and Alex Wolff as Backdurf, and it earned favorable reviews. Dahmer has 10 episodes, all of which are viewable on Netflix. Carl Franklin, whose other works include Devil in a Blue Dress, One False Move, and Out of Time, is one of the series' directors. The show was co-created by Murphy and Ian Brennan. Franklin, Peters, Alexis Martin Woodall, Eric Kovtun, and Janet Mock are additional producers.